Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Marta Ayala, and I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. As a reminder, I do every video in English and Spanish, and the degree theory is based on modern Western astrology using the Placidus house system. In today's video, I wanted to talk to you about the north node of the moon changing to Aquarius today, July 26th, and the south node switching over to Leo. Now, in parts of the world, they will switch over tomorrow, July 27th. So, as you should know, but just in case you don't know, the nodes of the moon are not planets, they are calculations. So, there is no planet that's a north node and there's no planet that's a south node. They are calculations of the sun and the moon, right? Where the eclipses cross. So I wanted to give you, first of all, a definition of what a new moon eclipse is, which a new moon eclipse is actually a solar eclipse as well. It's when the moon conjuncts the sun. And conjunction means that both are together. Now, the moon and the sun are not planets, they're luminaries, and the only one that really gives out light is the sun. The moon reflects the sun's light, okay? So when you have a new moon or a new solar eclipse, right? It will start, it's the beginning of a new period, right? So it usually marks the start of something new, okay? In whatever house it falls in your chart. The full moon eclipse is called a lunar eclipse, which is usually concluding something. And again, it's whatever house it falls into in your natal chart. So this happens when the Earth is between the moon and the sun. That's the in other words, the moon is here, the sun is here, and the earth is in the middle. So you see that it's a full moon eclipse because they're opposite to each other. Um, so just so that you can see, this is the symbol of the north node, which is a horseshoe facing up, and the south node is a horseshoe basically, and it's in Leo. So this is what they look like. Now, when you do your chart on astro.com, it only shows the north node. It does not show the south node, but they are exactly opposite to each other. All right. So when we have a full moon lunar eclipse, let's believe that this is the sun and this is the moon. The earth is in the middle. So that's why we get either a partial full moon eclipse or a total full moon eclipse. So because it depends on how much the earth blocks the light, right? So another thing that I wanted to let you guys know, for those of you that are studying astrology, is that eclipses are triggers. In astrology, we have uh, certain events or certain planets that cause things to happen. So they are triggers. For example, Mars can be a trigger. An eclipse can be a trigger. Uranus can be a trigger because these are things that they just happen. They Mars just explodes something, brings something to light. Uranus is things that happen suddenly, and it's usually an unpredictable event. Eclipses happen and it's usually a fated event, it's a final event. They were omens. They didn't necessarily bring good things in traditional astrology. Now, eclipses happen in conjunction with a new moon or a full moon. Now, not every new moon and not every full moon is an eclipse, just so that you know. But eclipses carry a lot more strength and a lot more energy than just a regular new or full moon. And of course, you know that we have at least one new moon and one full moon every month because the moon's cycle is every 28 days. All right, so for an eclipse to have an effect on your natal chart, it has to happen very close to either one of your natal planets or one of the angles of the chart. And then when I mean angles, let's let's assume that you are a Taurus rising, so that this would be your first house, your fourth house, seventh house, and 10th house. Those are the angles of your chart, okay? So for eclipses to happen, they they have to be either on the angles of the chart or close to one of your planets. And I would say no more than a 5-degree orb. The closer you are to that degree, something will happen. If you have no planets or your angles are not in the, and now we're talking about the Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus and Scorpio axis, right? And then what it is that that part of your chart is what is going to be in focus for the next year or so, but it doesn't mean that something fated might happen there. So, in other words, wherever the eclipse happens to fall in a particular house in your natal chart, that means that's the area of your life that you're going to be working on for these next 18 months, right? So this can be either the beginning or the ending of a cycle in that house where the eclipse falls, okay, in your personal chart. So, for example, if you um if the Aquarius and Leo eclipses are going to fall in your 10th house of career, meaning this this axis, this is the 10th house, let's say for Taurus, okay? Um, or if you have planets in Aquarius, that's where the North Node is, and then South Node is Leo. But let's say that you have, especially if you have the sun here in Aquarius in your 10th house, and an eclipse, one of the eclipses that's going to happen is between 3 to 5 degrees of that planet, either the sun, Venus, Mars, whatever planet you have in the 10th house, then you can have something happen in your career, right? A new career opportunity, or maybe a new boss, a new director, a new VP. Maybe you can have a baby because 10th house is also the status in society, right? You can have a promotion, but something in the 10th house is going to happen because it's the eclipse is happening close to the planet, right? And then depending on the planet, that's what's going to happen, right? So, hopefully it's a promotion, right? It's a new job. Now, if the eclipses are happening on the angles of your chart, so let's say that let's make you an Aquarius rising, okay? So this first house is going to be squaring, I mean, the eclipses are going to be squaring the 10th, the 4th, and opposing the 7th. All right. So then this means that the eclipse on the first may trigger something happening in the 10th house that is not, square is a challenge, right? So that means that you can have a difficult career change. Or maybe the eclipse, which is squaring your fourth house, is going to cause you to relocate. Maybe because you know, you need to find a new job, right? It's squaring your 10th, it's squaring your fourth, or maybe because your partner is getting a new job and you need to move. And you also need to change jobs because the eclipses are like the North Node is opposing the your spouse, your seventh house, or a committed partner, right? Now, if it's the opposition to your house and you are single, to the seventh house, I mean, and you are single, then this means that the eclipse can bring a new person in either love or business. Now, if you are married and the marriage is not doing well, then there can be a separation or there can be a divorce. Okay. Or the person that you're living with decides that they need to move out, right? So now these set of eclipses are a little special because Jupiter is going to be in Leo. And this Jupiter will conjunct the south node for a little bit, right? Remember that the nodes travel backwards. They start at 29 degrees. So today, the south node is going to be at 29 degrees of Leo. And Jupiter is going to be speeding through Leo. It's going to go through 27 degrees of Leo by December 27th, and then it's going to go retrograde. So Jupiter in Leo is going to conjunct the South Node in the month of November. And it will be at the 25th degree of Leo. So if you have any planets at 25 degrees of Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, or Scorpio, which are the fixed signs, okay, of the zodiac, remember that with Leo, the South Node is something from a past life or someone from a past life, something faded, or it actually means to lose someone or something. So if your birthday falls anywhere, I would say between November 1st and November 30th, when you do your solar return, the South Node can be squaring your sun. Okay. So this is how you use the astrology. It depends, of course, if you're a Scorpio, a Taurus, Leo, or an Aquarius. Okay, so it depends. Think back if you're old enough to the period of 2007 through 2009, basically 18 and a half years ago. Or, again, if you're old enough, 1989 through 1990, because whatever themes came up in your life in those last two, when Aquarius, the North Node was in Aquarius and the South Node was in Leo, then chances are it will happen again. So you got to think back 18 and a half years ago. Did you move? Did you get a new job? Did you leave a job? Did you have a baby? Did you buy a property? Chances are those things are going to come up again. Obviously, if you had a child, right? 18 and a half years are past, unless you had them very young, maybe you won't have another baby, or maybe you will. Maybe you'll have a surprise pregnancy, but then chances are maybe something is happening with that child. They're getting ready to go to college and they need to move away and go to the university or something like that, right? If you bought a property, then maybe you're going to sell the property you have, or maybe you're going to buy another property. Now, on a mundane level, themes that came up during that period, just to mention a few, from 2007 to 2009, Apple introduced the iPhone. Social media took off, Facebook, Instagram. We had the financial crisis of 2008, where the housing market took a huge dive. So those are the themes that came up on, for at least for the United States, and also the real estate thing happened worldwide, right? So fast forward to today, we have AI, which is going to be the new industrial revolution of our time, right? Back when the industrial revolution happened, which was the North Node in Aquarius, a lot of jobs were lost. And of course, we have been seeing the layoffs. Because the South Node was in Virgo, to lose your job. We obviously have new technology. Um, And AI, I'm thinking like the way we travel, a new way to generate electricity or energy, new bombs, right? Because the atomic bomb, it is an Aquarius thing, Uranus. New social work networks, maybe there's a new platform that comes out. South Node in Leo, well, there's a lot of regime changes that are going to happen. Losing the ego. It's not about you anymore. It's about the collective. What can we do for the world, right? We can see a lot of departures from the leadership in the world, meaning like a lot, there could be presidents, prime ministers that pass away, royalty too, because Leo is the sign of kings, right? Presidents. Um, and this could be, of companies as well, right? Famous actors can also, performers can pass away. So when you have eclipses, they bring a lot of deaths and a lot of births. So remember that eclipses are fated events, and whatever happens in an eclipse, it's final. So if you break up with someone, it's a done deal. There is no going back. So during the next 18 months, I do think that we will have a financial crisis. The issues with real estate will begin to happen because when the nodes switch to the North Node in Capricorn and the South Node in Cancer, South Node, that's when the foreclosure starts, right? South Node in Cancer is to lose your home, just like in 2008, right? But the foreclosures didn't start right away. It triggered the Aquarius and Leo axis triggers the financial stuff. And then of course the repercussion is the next 18 months where people start to lose their homes because they've lost their job or for whatever reason. I do think that the stock market will have a major correction between August, because that's when the eclipses start, through December of 2026. So if you have money invested in the stock market, you need to be very careful. Um, I, for one, currently am out of the stocks. I did pretty well with the oil stocks. Well, the oil ETF that I invested in, right? The USO. I'm happy. Yeah, let's just put it that way. All right, so let's talk about the 12 ascendants, but this time I'm going to be doing things a little different. Okay, I'm going to talk about the axis it falls on. So if the eclipses fall in your first and seventh house, so let's just say first and seventh house, right? If the eclipses fall in the first and seventh house, then if it's the first house, you're working on yourself, right? Because it's the first house, the way you look, the way you act, the way you dress, what you want out of life, what you're going to change. Something needs to change, whether it's your diet, it's your haircut, your makeup, you can change your job, you can change your place of living because it's going to be squaring. If this is first and seventh, then it's going to be squaring the fourth and the 10th, right? So, the other thing is, if it's the first house, when there's an eclipse in the first house, be careful with falls, with accidents, especially in your home, because it is squaring the fourth house. Okay. So, don't be rushing around. Take your time. Working on your marriage or your seventh house one-to-one relationships, with your spouse or the person you live with or your business partner. Remember, seventh house is long-term relationships, right? In love and business. If the eclipses fall in the second, so let's say like this, second and eighth house. Then second house is your earnings, which is the money that you make from the income, the money that you make from the job that you do. So if you have a second house that's Leo, you can lose your job. You can get laid off. Um, if it's that you have a second house in Aquarius, then you can gain something because the North Node is there. Maybe an additional job, or you get some more money, or you change careers. You know, it's a fated change, and you get another job. The eighth house is joint finances, which is your spouse or your partner's finance. Eighth house rules money that comes in lump sums, like the stock market, like inheritances. So if you have an eclipse happening in the eighth house, that is, the eighth house is Leo, then there could be deaths around you, not necessarily your own, but someone you know may pass, and then you may end up, getting an inheritance, right? Um, if the eighth house is in Leo, make sure that the stock market, you need to watch it, okay? Because you could have losses there. It, if you have the eighth house in Aquarius and you're playing the market, then you can have gains. But again, you need to be very careful because the stock market is actually manipulated. They play. It's gambling as far as I'm concerned. It's not what it used to be, that it was based on earnings and um, you know, what do you call it? That they would give dividends based on the no, no, no. Now it's just, let's bring it up really, really, really high, and then just, okay, time to exit. And then there's a lot of insider trading going on. So just be careful. So let's say if the eclipses are happening in your third and ninth houses, third house could be short trips. Ninth house, it could be long distance trips. In third house, if you have the third house in Aquarius, you can have short courses, for example, in for a license, like to become an electrician, or in IT, like IT security, or maybe you need to do some continuing education. All those are third house stuff, right? Short trips as well. Ninth house rules universities, religion, spiritual studies. So the North Node in Aquarius in the ninth house, you may be starting college. If you have a ninth house that is in Leo, then you may drop out of the university or the college. My suggestion is to take a semester off before making such a drastic decision, because things that happen in an eclipse are final, and there's no going back. The third house rules siblings and your extended family, so you can have an addition to the family, right? A North Node in Aquarius. If you have the third house in Aquarius, and if you have a third house in Leo, then someone third house related, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, may move away, can also pass. Also, ninth house deals with legal cases. So depending on if it's the north or the south, if it's the south node there, try to delay the case because chances are you will lose. It depends also on the way your chart is, but having the south node in the ninth house in a legal case is not good. Now, if the eclipses are in your fourth house and your 10th house, then this is the parental axis, right? It's typically the mother is the fourth house and the 10th house is the father, but in astrology there's a debate um of who's who, but either way it represents your parents, okay? Usually the fourth house is the one that nurtures you, and then the 10th house is the authoritative parent. But, it depends on what sign and how it is for you personally. Now, so if the eclipse falls in your fourth house and it's in Aquarius, then you need to move. Chances are it will trigger a move. Obviously, you have to have three different events to make this happen, but eclipses usually cause people to move. And if it's in the North Node in Aquarius, it will be a fated move. If you have the South Node, in other words, like this, in the fourth house, then and your parents health-wise are not doing well, it could be a passing of a parent, okay? That means that the eclipse will release the person from suffering, specifically because Jupiter is transiting through the fourth. Jupiter releases people that are in pain, like when they're having a Jupiter return in the fourth house, because fourth house is the house of endings. Eighth house describes how you're going to die, but the fourth house is the house of endings. So people with dementia, with like a really bad diabetes, with cancer, these horrible diseases, right? When they have a Jupiter return and it's in the fourth house, a lot of the times Jupiter is merciful with them and then they pass. So, they just releases them from the suffering. If the eclipse is happening in your 10th house, in the 10th house, it could be a promotion, a new job, or your boss or supervisor leaves, depending on, if it's Aquarius or Leo. If it's Leo in the 10th house, there could be that you can lose your job, or your boss retires, or maybe you retire. You decide to quit or to retire, or you can get laid off. It could be involuntary as well. And the same thing for your supervisor. All right. So if the eclipses are happening in your fifth and your 11th house, so this would be here, fifth and 11th house, then these houses, okay, the fifth house is all about creative self-expression, religion, having fun, vacations, hobbies, boyfriends, girlfriends. The 11th house has to do with your hopes, your wishes, your social and professional groups. It also rules retirement. Okay, so an eclipse in the 11th house can trigger you to just say, okay, that's it, it's time to go. I don't want to work anymore. Okay. It's also the house of friendship. So this can mean if, for example, the North Node is in your 11th house, you have an 11th house of Aquarius, then there could be a fated person coming in who's going to be a friend, okay? Just like if you have it in Leo, then that means that your friends can move away, they can pass away, or the friendship ends, right? Especially like if they retire and they move away, usually, from work, then eventually the friendship may end in the next 18 months. Um, fifth house. Fifth house, if you have Leo in the fifth house, eh, there could be somebody, let's say you're single. Let's start with that. Let's say that you're single, you can meet somebody from a past life because the South Node is there. There could be a fated meeting. So this would be like for Aries rising, right? Um, so boyfriend or girlfriend, depending, right? Someone coming into your space, just it's a fated relationship, but just tread carefully because sometimes these fated things It's either a lesson or hopefully it's, a whirlwind romance that leads into something fabulous, right? Because Jupiter is also there. Fifth house is also your children. So especially your firstborn. So they can have opportunities. Or if you are of the age that you want to have a child, this could be a surprise pregnancy, especially if it's going to be your first child, right? So the North Node would be in Aquarius. It would be a fated pregnancy. Likewise, South Node in the fifth house, be careful if you're pregnant. Don't take any chances, okay? And then finally, um, if the eclipses happen in your 12th and okay, so 12th house would be here and 6th house. These are health houses. So both, right? So the 6th house is work, daily routines, service to others. 12th house is spirituality, self-sacrifice. So 6th house rules your daily routines, health, work. So this is like your everyday health practices, exercise practices. 12th house rules chronic diseases. But both of these houses deal with health. This is something that hopefully you can control. This one, the 12th house requires a little bit more because the 12th house is hospitals. So hopefully this is not the case for you guys, but health needs to be watched for the next 18 months, okay? Always consult with your with your doctors, right? And also 12th house is maybe you're traveling to a really, really far away place. Let's hope that that's what it is, right? So anyway, with this, I conclude the video. I hope that I have explained it well enough so that you guys understand what the cycle is. And remember that eclipses are fated. So if something happens that you break up with a person or you get a divorce or something like that, then just it was meant to be. There's nothing that you could do to stop it. And I know some people are gonna object to that, but for many, many years that I've done astrology, eh, I think things are destined. I don't think we have a lot of free will. But anyway, that's just my opinion based on what I have seen. All right, so with this, I conclude the video. Thank you for watching. If you have learned about astrology and how to use it with the eclipses, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and send it to somebody else that may be learning astrology. As always, if you would like a chart reading with me, please send me an email to astrology@aol.com. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.